The name has changed, but, well, Gulf of America sold last year. Gulf of Mexico is out completely. It sold last year. Join me in welcoming the true name of the body of water below Texas and most of the Deep South and calling it the Gulf of Contemporary. That's right. It has actually been changed now. It's changed on Google Maps, and Executive Order has changed the name, so we will be talking about this. I do have some thoughts on this, mostly indifference, of course, but we'll talk about it. We'll go over what's going on there and where we go from there. In other news, big ball envy has gripped the mainstream media, the American left, and basically anybody who's against Doge at this point. We're going to talk about what I actually mean by big balls, because I think we're in a Twilight Zone episode at this point, you guys. I can't explain most of this anymore, but we'll talk about it, what's happening there, and where we go from there. In other news, Doge has been blocked from accessing sensitive Treasury data. We're going to go over what's happening with this. A call for impeachment on the judge who authorized this, and where we go from there. And in further news, before we move on to the stuff that we had to miss last week, because, fuck, after 3 weeks there was a lot of it to go over and we just ran out of time. Japanese company will invest heavily in, but not own, U.S. steel. They have an exclusive contract to buy U.S. oil, and they are going to be bringing some of their factories into Detroit. I would rather these companies be owned by Americans, but it is a good first step towards jobs. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, find some food and a meal, and go find some friends to bring in here, because this show only grows by word of mouth. And I am upper class, high society, God's gift to ballroom notoriety. And I always fill my ballroom, the event is never small. The social pages say, I've got the biggest balls of all. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, it was probably because the system came out, or the game rather came out, after the Nintendo 64 had released to US audiences, which surprisingly enough, for all the hype that the N64 got, it was considered to be a commercial failure. Partially because CD-based games and most of the player base growing up, and now wanting more dramatic JRPGs and less cartoony video games like, well, Yoshi's Island. But Yoshi's Island really was underrated in my opinion. It was a fantastic game too. The graphics were fun, they were cartoony, and the soundtrack was phenomenal. The soundtrack just made the whole thing, and I mean, Coffee Day putting her twist on the athletic theme for the game I think it just makes it better. It makes you want to get up and do stuff. It really does. So I'm glad to have put that on in the beginning here. And, well, I can't believe that we're going into a news show. And one of the main topics of the week is a kid whose online moniker is Big Balls. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. I'm serious. No, I'm not joking right now. Big Balls, it's a real thing. I've looked into it. When I first saw it, that was my first thought was, please tell me you're kidding. Please be joking. Please be joking. But no, it's real. It's happening. Looks like we gotta go do some zappy over on Kick. Hey, Noah K. You know, I appreciate you coming in and saying, hey, and you wanted to see me successful, because I'm sure that's what you actually want, but, you know, maybe come in and say hi and prove that you're human before you come back in and do shit like this here, so... And, you know, I don't ban anybody, because I think everybody should get a chance to hear, but you can have 5 minutes, think about what you've done. Noah K. just followed the channel. Yeah, well, he's probably not going to be following for much longer. Probably because Noah K8 is a bot, and I can almost say that entirely based on the fact that, with the exception of some of the wording in the beginning, he sent the exact same messages as Mighty202555, who popped in at the very end of the stream last week as well. So, like I said, if you're real, take about 5 minutes, think about what you've done, and you can come back. I don't ban people. And I have brought other people back who have been banned before as well. I've banned like one person in the chat because a person was being like outright obnoxious. And for the mods over in the Discord, you know the rules. The only way that people can actually get really, really, truly banned is for doxing people. Or whipping their penis out in the Discord. I don't like that. So, yeah. A lot of stuff going on here over on Contemporary. We got some chitter chatter going on in here. Palm is first. Vong. Reminding me of the microphone was on. Yeah, I had a great conversation with Olive Swan, an author and an ex-personality. So, you guys should go check that out. That's probably going to drop on Friday, shortly after this episode drops as well. I don't know, maybe I'll take some time in the morning and get them both out, but yeah, that's probably going to drop on Friday for that. I know I want to do some more pack out from the garage today. We went down and got a little bit more stuff. I believe we've got something we've got to go into town for tomorrow as well. And I want to do some gardening tomorrow, so... Plus I think Mom and Dad are coming, so that'll be fun. So maybe I'll get to it, maybe I won't, but yeah. I'd like to get that out for tomorrow, I would. No, I was here by myself, and yeah, I was setting stuff up, so I wasn't looking at the chat. Long has an apartment now. I hope that it's bigger than mine. Bong says, looks like the Kick Chat needs a banhammer swinger. 2 ads in a row. Somebody gift that man a subscription. Curse you, algorithm. Curse you, algorithm. We could have a logarithm. I need to resub. I hate the ads. Yes. Annoying Indian phone scammers. Funny story about that, by the way. And then we'll finish off with the chat and I'll get to the news. I've told this story on here before, but somebody, and if I find out who it is, I will slap the person. Somebody put my office phone when I worked, well, technically I'm still working for the same company at the time, but I'm now in my 3rd location within the company. I've done 2 transfers since then. But my office phone, my direct line office phone, 2 positions ago, Somebody gave that number to Indian scammers, and one day they called, and I counted. I kept a counter of it. 57 times in a day, trying to get me to change my car insurance or Medicare Part A, Part B, and stuff like that. Trying to get me to give them the number on the back of my Medicare card. And if you tell them it's a business, by the way, especially if it is one, they will panic to fuck. Like, I don't know if it's that they're not supposed to call a business or they get in extra trouble for that, but they will panic straight out to fuck. But 57 times in a day, that was nuts. Trump, make an executive order about that. Something that Americans actually care about. We've got some kick chatter going on over here. Lunacy has joined us over on the Twitch as well. Mogwai says, I'm sorry the gentleman senator from South Carolina did that in your Discord. He's done some stuff, that's for sure. Alright, we got to talk about the news today, and as the title card suggests, I decided to put the most important news of the week at the very, very top of the stream. I can't think of anything more important than this. Can you guys think of anything more important than this that we could be going over as a country, especially one that, as much as the media has tried to tell us we were not in a recession, that we just came or are headed out of a recession? We might actually still be into it. Can you think of anything that could be more important for us to do than this? Let's get started, shall we? From the White House, whitehouse.gov/presidential actions. Gulf of America Day, February 9th, 2025. A proclamation. Usually, if it's long, I don't do it in the voice of whatever politician or character representing a politician do. I gotta do this one in Trump voice. I have to. There is no way that I cannot do this in Trump voice. Today, I'm very honored to recognize February 9th as the first ever Gulf of America Day. On January 20th, 2025, I signed Executive Order 14-172, restoring names that honor American greatness. Among other actions, that executive order required the Secretary of the Interior, acting pursuant to 43 U.S. Code 364 through 364F, to take all appropriate actions to rename as the Gulf of America the U.S. continental shelf area bounded on the northeast, north, and northwest by the great state of Texas, greatest state, and Louisiana, other greatest state, and Mississippi, and Alabama, and the one that's governed by my good friend and my former enemy, Ron DeSanctimonious, Florida, and extending to the seaward boundary with Mexico and Cuba in the area formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico. I'm going to not do the rest of this in Trump voice because somebody didn't care for it. Lay down. I took the action in part, as stated in that order. The area formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico has long been an integral asset to our once burgeoning nation and has remained an indelible part of America. Today I'm making the first visit to the Gulf of America since its renaming. As my admin restores the American pride in the history of American greatness, it is fitting and appropriate for our great nation to come together and commemorate this momentous occasion and the renaming of the Gulf of America. Oh, now there's caps. Now we have to go back into Trump voice. Because it's like a tweet for him. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, the greatest president, the best president, there are no presidents like me, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim February 9th, 2025, as Gulf of America Day, I call upon public officials and all the people of the U.S. to observe this day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. The greatest activities. There are no greater activities. So, here's my question. What did you do on the very, very first Gulf of America Day? I think a lot of people watched the Super Bowl. Dog, lay down. So yes, it is the Gulf of America as of today, and it showed up on Google Maps. I thought Google would resist, honestly. I really do. I thought that they would come out and say, the fuck with this, we're not going to do that shit. You know, hashtag resist, hashtag resist, hashtag resist. Over and over and over again. But no, they didn't. The Mogwai says, I saw an algorithm the other day. It was pretty big. I'd say, it said it'd see me later. It's how I knew it wasn't a crocodile. Boo. Long says, a natural algorithm, and also the new bedroom is bigger than your entire old apartment. Yeah, it was not big. My garage is bigger than that place was. Long has seen it. He has actually physically seen the closet space that I lived in. It was cheap, and I didn't know anything about the area at the time. And it was close to work, too. So that did help out a lot with me wanting to stay there. And I didn't think I was going to stay there for 2 years either. I thought that that was going to be a 3 months tops thing. Mock says it was still more needed than renaming a freaking ocean. We got a new Gulf and $9 eggs. Where the fuck are you finding $9 eggs at, by the way? And I do have to ask Palm because she was the one that picked out the eggs. I did not. She just brought them back over from the shelf, but I don't know what they were at the local Woodman's when I went there. They're still like $5 at Quick Trip. 5 to 6. Mogwai says, I just called it the Gulf of Mexico and ice showed up at my door. We'll be talking about them later too. So yes, it is officially the Gulf of America. Aren't you happy? CNN reporting, Gulf of America arrives on Google Maps. Which, by the way, I can confirm that as well. And I just realized too on stuff that I hate that there was something that I wanted to put up from one of the other Discord channels on things that I hate today. But I didn't put it in my regular articles. I put it in, I think I put it in Clown World. I don't know. I put it somewhere. There is so much stupid shit going on this week, and yeah, we were having fun with it, definitely. Did I put it in general? I might have. Because we were fighting over scenes from Robin Hood Men in Tights. I don't know. I don't know. There was so much stupid this week. Maybe I'll look through my notifications and find it. I don't know. But anyway, there it is. That is a direct screenshot from Google Maps. I saw it on Palm's phone today too. The body of water, formerly known in the U.S. as the Gulf of Mexico, is now listed for U.S.-based users of Google Maps as the Gulf of America. Aww. They cucked and they only did it for U.S. users. Boo. The change follows the executive order by Donald Trump renaming the area. Google had previously said it was a long-standing practice of applying name changes when they have been updated in official government sources. People using maps in the US will see Gulf of America, and the people in Mexico will see Gulf of Mexico. Everyone else will see both names, it said in a statement on Monday. Google said last month it would also change the name of Mount McKinley, the nation's highest peak, from Denali following Trump's order, which I guess I didn't know that one was a thing. I didn't realize that Denali and McKinley were the same mountain. So, apologize for that one. Missed that one somehow. Former President Barack Hussein renamed the Alaska landmark to Denali in 2015 as a nod to the region's native population, but the change hadn't been made on Google Maps as of Tuesday. Both changes stem from an executive action that Trump signed shortly after taking office, saying the changes honor American greatness. We're gonna make America great again. Which, I don't have the Rumble chat up. I should have the Rumble chat up. Somebody could be saying horribly anti-Semitic things in the Rumble chat right now and I wouldn't even know. They aren't. Lame. The order criticized Obama's decision to rename McKinley as an affront to President McKinley's life, his achievements, and his sacrifice, drawing parallels to Trump. The order notes that McKinley championed tariffs and was assassinated in an attack on our nation's values and our success. The FAA also issued a notice Monday regarding the geographical name change. Please be advised that the FAA is in the process of updating our data and charts to show the name change from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and a name change from Denali to Mount McKinley, the agency said. The Coast Guard, responsible for patrolling the nation's maritime coastal waters, has also begun incorporating the new Gulf of America name change in its public notices. Why does the Navy need a second branch, by the way? I never understood that. To do local stuff and then a separate branch to do international stuff, because they're doing the same thing. It's always bothered me. Although maybe it's just so the Navy can have great chance. I went to a race at the Milwaukee Mile when I was probably 21, 22-ish or something. And there were a bunch of guys in their whites. I think it was the color guard, actually. Because I think they were the ones presenting the flag during the race. It was a Craftsman truck race. And they were chanting as they were marching along, "We're not the Coast Guard. They don't even work hard." So maybe there's a bit of a rivalry there. I know that the only time the Marines are recognized as the Navy, as they actually are, is during the Army-Navy football game. Mogwai says, maybe if you tell the bad news in a good way, it won't be so bad. Long says Coasties do a bunch of other stuff, SAR, body recovery, etc. Interesting. Alright, so there's your Google Maps stuff. A reporter was banned from the Oval Office over Gulf of America clash, the outlet says. The Associated Press said Tuesday that a reporter was barred from attending an event in the Oval Office, or the Oval Orifice, depending on what you want to call it, over a dispute about the outlet's editorial guidelines after the president signed an EO to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Today we were informed by the White House that if the AP did not align its editorial standards with Trump's executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, the Associated Press would be barred from accessing an event in the Oval Orifice. The statement reads, this afternoon's AP reporter was blocked from attending an executive order signing. Are you ready to hear why it matters? Why it matters. President Trump has frequently used the phrase, fake news, to dismiss typically unfavorable news reports. He has said he is providing a great service by calling out news outlets while suggesting the media is causing division and distrust. At her first news conference, Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt announced a new media pass to welcome bloggers, podcasters, and social media influencers and others into the press room. Who wants to see a contemporary press pass on the R-rated conservative? I will find a way to make that shit happen. I'm supposed to be talking to him next week, by the way, for Ed Talk. And do check out Ed Talk when it comes out for Olive Swan. We talked with her earlier. That was fun. Here's my take on this entire thing. I don't care. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I mean, the Mothwai is bringing up a good point. While I have not seen the $9 eggs that people claim, I think that there were a lot of more important things to go through than to rename a body of water. And Mark says the same people that were cheering this waste of time screamed when monuments came down. The hypocrites are amazing, which, and I've never proclaimed myself to be a member of the MAGA movement. I was just on X earlier in another post, and I did call them MAGA morons, because there are the people who are just as bad as progressives who think that their religious leader, in their case Trump, can do no wrong, that everything is perfectly fine and everything is fine, dandy, and wonderful. And I have seen that Trump has done some good things in his first term. I'm waiting to see how a lot of it turns out. And a lot of that is based on court injunctions, court decisions, and things like that. I'm waiting to see where all of that goes. But I think if we keep going in this direction, we will have a robust economy. I'd like to see a lot more purged out of the federal spending bill, because I've been a spending hawk, and that's something that I've been talking about since the very, very beginning. It's part of the reason that I didn't want to vote for him in 2020 or 2024, even though I wound up voting for him at the very last second, I will add, both times. It was not with the same excitement that I did in 2016, because I saw the way that he spent. I'd like to see some changes made in the legislative process, especially when it comes to budgets, where they can't just cram an omnibus down our throats 7 hours before the government, quote, runs out of money. So we can have a chance to look it over, and maybe not have every single wish list item packed into this thing at the very last second. Talking to you, Mike Johnson. Bong says, maybe you should get a White House press pass. I demand a White House press room contemporary stream now. Now see, the problem with that for me is, and I'd love to have the ability to do that, but that would involve me being in Washington, D.C., and I'm pretty sure I would burst into flames. I mean, I was feeling a little bit warm the one time that I was there, and that was in the residential area. I don't think that I could do that. What's your thoughts on Doge? We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the stream, but I'll veer into that for now because you asked, and this is the People's Show. I've got some issue with the way that Doge is implemented and what it is that they're doing. Now, Doge, and I know this full out, it's an advisory committee. They don't actually have any official government power because they would need to be greenlit by Congress in order to do so. But I like what they're doing. I like how they're doing it. Instead of just taking the sheet of paper to the president saying, here, we found this waste here, do something about it. They're actually going through and they're bringing it out to the American people. So the American people can have an opinion on where it goes and actually have the arguments about it. I think the progressives bring up good points when they're trying to argue in favor of the things that they want the government spending money on. But it's the first time in their existence, in the progressive caucus's existence, that they've ever had to argue it also. So I like the fact that they are arguing it. I would like it to have a more official capacity. The ability to go in and do some audits and, well, I mean, they're doing audits, but actually get access to government stuff. I'd like it to be an actual executive branch position instead of an advisory committee. I'd like there to be a cabinet position of government efficiency. I think it's doing well for the limits that it has on it. All right, we're off on the tangent. Let's go back to the news. What else do we have up here? We've got some news on the federal buyout, and then again, I was actually in big favor of this here. And it's not because I want to see the government cram-packed and jam-packed with government loyalists. I don't. And mega loyalists. I don't. I think that would be a terrible idea. But what I would like to see is people who absolutely 100% detest the president in his capacity, which is a lot of the people in the federal agencies, have the ability to get out instead of working for somebody that they hate and be able to go out and find another job. I know a lot of the MAGA people just want them to be kicked to the fucking curb with nothing and forced to live on poverty wages or McDonald's and shit like that. I don't want that for them. I want them out. I want them to have an inability to make any more decisions that affect my life. And I want them to go out and compete for jobs in the private sector. See what it is that they think that they can do. Mogwai says, I do not see a robust economy. I see a bigger downturn. This will be a cluster F of epic proportions. Yes, Harris would have been worse, and at least we wouldn't have Elon. Elon is a little yap dog that's following around the big-ass bulldog. I'm afraid to know which one you consider to be the big-ass bulldog. Because I don't really see a big-ass bulldog. Alright, from ABC News, judge says he will continue to pause Trump's federal buyout offer. Yes, a federal judge has blocked the federal buyout and forced 60,000 people who did legitimately want to get out of the government to stay in their jobs. From Catherine Falders and Peter Charlambous. A federal judge in Boston, because of course it was Boston, said Monday that he will continue to pause the Trump admin's plan to offer a deferred resignation buyout to tens of thousands of federal employees until he issues a ruling on a preliminary injunction. 3 federal employee unions, because of course they were federal employee unions, who saw their union dues money start to dry up, have argued in a lawsuit that the Office of Personnel Management's deferred resignation offer is an unlawful ultimatum to force the resignation of government workers under the threat of mass termination. Again, hey, you hate me. You've expressed online that you hate me. And they said 8 months' salary, so for most of them, that's a salary of about 70 to 80 grand. Carry the one. All right. Hey, here's $50,000 spread out over 8 months. Go get a different job. And I believe that if they were on the deferred, and I'm pretty sure this is why this happened, that if they were on the deferred buyout, that's not subject to union dues anymore, I believe. The pause, ordered by U.S. District Judge George A. O'Toole Jr. I wonder if he's in any relation to Sneakers O'Toole. I didn't take my sneakers off. I am Sneakers O'Toole. Came just hours ahead of the program's midnight deadline, which itself was extended by 4 days following a temporary restraining order that continues to remain in effect. During an hour-long hearing Monday, a lawyer for the Department of Justice framed the deferred resignation as an offer of humane off-ramp for federal employees before Trump enacts sweeping changes to rebalance and reorganize the federal workforce. Trump campaigned on a promise to reform the federal workforce, DOJ Attorney Eric Hamilton said, outlining Trump's plan to reduce the size of the federal government and his return to office executive order. We understand these announcements may have come as a disappointment for some in the federal workforce. Hamilton argued that any further delay of the buyout would cause irreparable harm because the Trump admin's plans to enact the next steps of reshaping the federal government as soon as the new buyout window closes. Elaine Goldstein, a lawyer representing the unions that brought the challenge, hammered the Trump admin for attempting to enforce an unprecedented program with a slapdash exploding deadline. Yeah, 8 months is a slapdash exploding deadline. For the last 2 weeks, the confusion has reigned for millions of career civil servants, Goldstein said. This is a program of unprecedented magnitude that raises questions about the rationality of OPM's decision-making. Nobody let Midget B see this article, by the way. Nobody let Midget B see this article. That's an order. We have new people in the Discord. Don't let Midget B see this one. The buyout offer, part of Trump's effort to trim the size of the government through billionaire Elon Musk's newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, was sent out 2 weeks ago in an email with the subject line, "Fork in the road." I don't know why, but the way that I said fork with that reminds me of Mike Judge's explanation of where he got the voice of Boomhauer and the Cajun gentleman that called him, complaining about the fact that he thought the show was called Porky's Butthole. The same language Musk used when he slashed jobs at Twitter after taking over the company in 2022. The offer from the Office of Personnel Management offered full pay and benefits until September for any federal employee who accepted a deferred resignation by February 6th with no obligation to work after they accepted the agreement. And with no obligation to work, that also, again, meant no union dues. While Goldstein acknowledged that Trump has the right to downsize the federal government, she emphasized the Office of Personnel Management has not gone through any of the steps necessary to carry out such a sweeping move, including analyzing the costs and benefits of their approach, evaluating its impact on the government's function, and accessing potential conflicts of interest for Musk. We're going to get into that a little bit later too, by the way. She added the exact terms of the buyout are shifting for thousands of employees who have gotten inconsistent guidance from their agency. Well, that's their agency's problem, and I'm going to come right back out and say that because it was fairly simple. Reply back to this email with resign in the subject line, and you don't have to come to work anymore, and you get 8 months worth of pay. I don't know how your guidance is off on that. Unless you're being deliberately obtuse to make it seem like Orange Man's bad. The Mogwai apparently does not like Elon very much. The Mogwai says, I honestly didn't think MAGA could find someone more annoying than Gates or MTG, which MAGA and MTG do not compute. MTG is a Democrat. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a Democrat. Repeat after me. Elon said, "Hold my beer." Department of Government Efficiency. Oh, that's next to the Department of Unicorn Affairs. We have one of those departments in this house. So, a judge has blocked, and yes, the union is the one that led the charge. Nick Sorter with, this is Fox video on this one. Yeah, we're gonna watch Fox. The rest of you should turn off Fox, by the way. Update: federal labor unions are the one who sued to block the Trump admin from offering federal workers buyouts per Fox. Let's watch.
All right, Sandra, we got some breaking news and a Fox News alert now on that employee buyout program we were speaking to Carolyn Levitt about at the top of the hour. The number when we were speaking to her had been marked at 40,000 employees had decided to take the buyout. That number has now increased to 60,000. But there's a wrinkle because unions representing federal workers had gone to court in Boston saying that this was an unconstitutional move by the president to offer this buyout, that any buyout would have to be authorized by Congress. Judge George O'Toole, who's a federal district judge up there in Boston, has put a temporary injunction on the midnight deadline for employees to submit whether or not they're going to take the buyout. He has now extended that until Monday at the very least. Again, these federal unions are saying that any kind of buyout like that would have to be authorized by Congress, and also argues that what the Trump plan is here is to replace career civil servants with, quote, partisan loyalists. But as far as we know from the president and Elon Musk, the plan is to downsize the civil service by about 100,000, if not more. So their number is at 60,000 right now. We expected that more would probably take the deal before the midnight deadline, but now that has been extended until Monday. So, Sandra, they get more time to think about it.
All right. Let's not listen to Fox anymore because they suck. I'm going to skip this one for right now because it looks like they're going to be telling us a lot of the same information that was on the other article. So, while we would love to sit back and listen to NPR, we're not going to do that today. Let's keep going. Reuters with the official number as well, and we just got that from the Fox article. 60,000 sign up to quit. 60,000 people looked at this and said, yeah, I'd be okay with this. From Daniel Weissner, Tim Reed, and Nathan Lane over at Reuters. A U.S. judge on Thursday temporarily blocked the Trump admin's proposed buyout for federal workers until at least Monday, giving an initial win to the labor unions who sued to stop it. 60,000 people. By the way. 60,000. Even as the program was stayed, more than 60,000 federal employees have already accepted the buyout offer, a White House source told Reuters. So, yeah, that's a bunch of people that probably saw the same thing I did. Hey, do we wonder why the information was unclear on this one? Could it be another entrenched agency wanting to protect their own stuff? From NPC News, Education Department staff warned that Trump buyout offers could be canceled at any time. From Tyler Kincaid and David Ingram, top officials at the Education Department told staff members Wednesday that if they accept the Trump admin's deferred resignation package, the education secretary may later cancel it and employees would not have any recourse. Why? Why would you do that? Oh, I know. To keep your people intact. The Office of Personnel Management sent notices last week to federal employees that if they resign by Thursday, they could continue receiving pay and benefits until the end of September. The Trump admin hopes to get as much as 10% of the workforce to quit as part of a plan to shrink the federal bureaucracy. But 3 Education Department officials told NPC News that Rachel Oglesby, the department's new chief of staff, and Jacqueline Clay, its chief human capital officer, described significant caveats to the so-called fork-in-the-road offer in an all-staff meeting held in Zoom on Wednesday. The officials did not want to be named for fear of retaliation. They are anonymous sources, and the Mogwai's cat has come to the table. The education secretary would be allowed to rescind the agreement, or the government could stop paying, and employees who took the deferred resignation package would waive all legal claims, the 3 officials said they were told in the meeting. Okay, can we get it's Zoom, can we get a recording of the meeting? Can you back this up? Or did the janitor just tell you something because the janitor doesn't like Trump? the three employees say that they've seen only sample resignation agreements so far and would need to agree to resign by Thursday before they could see the actual terms of their separation. I would believe the sample would be the terms, because all you had to do was reply to it with resign in the subject line. And again, it's unnamed sources. This could be Chang the janitor. Chang the janitor's revenge. It could be a top-level employee of the Department of Education, but it could be Chang the janitor as well. Alright, let's move on to tax cuts. This is the kind of stuff I get excited about. Libs of TikTok. Yes, I'm using them as a source. I know it's cringe. President Trump's plan for the largest tax cut in the history of the middle-class working Americans. Which somehow, by the way, is still going to be a tax cut for the rich. Because the rich get a lot of tips in Social Security, apparently. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. I know that the wealthy get a lot of overtime pay. Renew Trump's middle-class tax cuts. Well, for middle-class, though, I mean, that's of course a tax cut for the wealthy. Adjusting the SALT cap. Eliminate all special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners. See, there you go. By eliminating the tax breaks for billionaire sports teams owners, you've made a tax cut for the billionaires. Close the carried interest tax deduction loophole. Tax cut for Made in America products. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a major tax cut for the wealthy. You know, the wealthy who make 30 grand a year, slinging drinks in some crappy hometown bar. Let's watch the video, shall we?
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap. Eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners. Close the carried interest tax deduction loophole. Tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
Look at all those tax cuts for the wealthy. Alright, to follow up with this one here, from Axios, Trump lays out tax priorities to House GOP, where they will die, because the GOP loves to fucking lose. From Alex Eisenstadt. Wrong window. The White House outlined its tax priorities in a meeting with the House GOP leaders on Thursday. A list that includes campaign promises like ending taxes on tips and Social Security benefits. A White House official tells Axios. Trump promised tax cuts would be a centerpiece of his agenda, but the wish list presented Thursday also includes the closure of some loopholes typically used by the wealthy. Admin officials informed Republican leaders that they were stressing Trump's no tax on tips proposal, as well as ending taxes on Social Security and overtime pay. Trump is also pushing to renew his 2017 tax cut bill. I mean, that's totally a tax cut for the wealthy. Adjust the SALT cap to implement tax cuts for goods made in the USA. The wealthy could take a hit under some of the proposals. Trump is advocating to eliminate special tax breaks for sports team owners to close the carried interest tax deduction. The so-called carried interest loophole allows partners of investment funds to pay a lower tax rate on a portion of their profit. Trump also wanted to close it in 2017, but the idea was not included in the final bill. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder how many members of Congress have partners in investment funds or spouses in investment funds. I wonder how many people would have been hurt by that sit in the halls of the great U.S. Capitol. I have no idea what that dog is doing. Might step up for a second. Go let him roam the property. On a local level, no tax on tips bill might not be necessary, Kansas House Tax Chair says, from Jack Harville. Where is my monitor, by the way? Why is that over on my left window? Yeah, I'll be right back. I gotta let this poor fool wander. He might have to go outside here in just a little bit, so I might have to throw some intermission or a video on this and run him back out. He's kind of smelling like dogs do when they got to go running outside. Anyway, back to what we were doing with this one. No tax on tip bill might not be necessary, Kansas House Tax Chair says, from Jack Harville. Kansas Senate Republicans announced their intention to end taxation on tipped income last week. But House's tax chair said it may not be necessary if passed federally. Ty Masterson announced February. So this is a local intending the fact that it might become federal law instead. Announced February 3rd, the state would be seeking to end the state's taxation of tips in a joint news conference with U.S. Senator Roger Marshall. Marshall said he's co-leading the efforts at the federal level with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz's No Tax on Tips Act, although Marshall isn't among the bill's 9 co-sponsors. We love that idea from the federal government, Masterson said. We want to follow that lead. Can you imagine if, like, everybody in the world who waited tables and tended bar just went straight to Kansas? Like a mass migration to Kansas. Could you imagine it? That would be fun. That would be wild, yo. Trump vows to deliver on no tax on tips campaign promise during a Las Vegas speech. 100% yours from Andrea Margolis over at Fox. Oh, they locked me out. That's okay. We have access to the article from here.
the coming weeks, I'll be working with Congress to get a bill on my desk.
Wow, that's really quiet.
Families, small businesses, and very importantly, keeps my promise for a thing called, and I know you didn't hear anything about this, and I'm sure it had no influence on the state, the fact that we won this crazy, massive majority, the state that hadn't been won by a Republican in decades. But I'm sure you haven't heard. We're going to get it.
Yeah, we can't even hear that.
Tax on tips.
And the thing with like no tax on tips is, I don't necessarily know that. I mean, it would simplify a lot of the tax code, and I do think that it would make a lot less money.
Doing something new.
Why am I listening to this?
And they're doing it very intentionally. So they are putting.
Shut up. I know that it would probably simplify a lot of tax returns, especially, again, for the middle class. So you're not sitting here with a tax professional coming back trying to tell you that, oh, you need to claim this and this and this and write this off and this off and this off. So I think it's a good idea, but I'm full out taxation is theft, so I'm not ready to entertain the idea of more taxation. All right. It's happened. You knew it would. This was not the article I wanted to go first. But we will go with Politico magazine. Al Green is filing new impeachment articles against Trump. From Nick Wu. Woo! Al Green said Wednesday he's introducing impeachment articles against Trump after the president said the U.S. would take over Gaza. No, he's introducing articles of impeachment against Trump because he has a D after his name. And he was just trying to find some excuse, so... Well, I don't know what he was actually doing because a lot of his constituency is against Gaza as well. So, yeah, I don't know. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and injustice in Gaza is a threat to justice in the U.S., Green said in a floor speech on Wednesday morning. I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I hate to tell you this, it began on November, the first Tuesday in November, last year. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds. Twirling the mustache, proposed and dastardly deeds done. What is this, a Hanna-Barbera cartoon? The Texas Democrat launched multiple long-shot impeachment bids during Trump's first term using procedural maneuvers meant to circumvent House leadership and bypass committees. Similar to his last efforts, there's not much appetite among Democrats to impeach Trump as of yet. Bullshit. Asked Wednesday about Green's measure, Pete Aguilar of California, the number 3 House Democrat, said it wasn't a focus for the caucus. Also, bull fucking shit. Trump's campaign reacts to impeachment articles filed against him. From Newsweek's very own Ewan Palmer. President Trump's campaign team responded to the threat of impeachment by asking supporters for donations. Gotta make money somehow. Luna says, we have a banana republic. We don't have a warm enough climate, I think, to grow bananas, though. Although we do get a lot of them, so maybe we do. Trump's campaign team responded to the threat of impeachment by asking supporters for donations during Sunday's Super Bowl. A text message was sent urging recipients to click on a link to a website operated by the Trump National Committee. This is a joint fundraising committee between Trump's campaign and the Republican National Committee, which launched last March. Newsweek has contacted the RNC for a comment via email. We got to fundraise on something, I guess. Alright, what else do we have? I sometimes want to... yes, let's talk about big balls. Hang on. I know I'm going to get copyright pop for this. I don't give a fuck. Go away, commercial. I hear music. And I don't know why. I don't know if somebody's electronics aren't on or what the hell the story is. Give me a second. Alright, anyway. While we're here, all the State Department's data runs through the office Corosine recently was appointed to, which the Post describes as a treasure trove of information. It's not like they have a history of informed political opinion, an anonymous source who knows Corosine told the outlet. Now, what they're pissed about is the fact that somebody named Big Balls is fucking trolling them. Big brains behind big balls. Legal firebrands powering Musk's Doge. Elon's budget-slashing Department of Government Efficiency is attracting some high-powered lawyers with Supreme Court experience, something the tech billionaire may need as a legal challenges mount. Newsweek saw email comment Monday from a Doge in the new Doge hire, and again, I'm going to leave his name out of here. Musk's effort to cut the federal budget by $2 trillion a year is facing major legal challenges because people are benefiting from that $2 trillion a year. The Doge is arming itself with lawyers with Supreme Court clerking experience ahead of legal battles that will likely make their way to America's highest court. Trump announced the formation of Doge on his inauguration day as part of his plans to dismantle bureaucracy and reduce federal spending, and announced Tesla CEO Musk as co-chair. Writing in his legal blog, Judicial Notice on Sunday, lawyer David Latt noted that Elon's team at the Department of Government Efficiency is getting a lot of media coverage for its teenage tech quizzes with nicknames like Big Balls. That's a reference to Redacted, a 19-year-old high school graduate and Doge hire who used the nickname Big Balls in his online profiles. I used to work with a service manager who is now a general manager of an entire dealership who uses the Snapchat screen name moniker of Mr. Big Nuts. And this gentleman is the same age as I am, just so you know. So it's not just 19-year-olds. Latt wrote that as well as taking on big balls. Yes, that is a line that has appeared in a legal blog. And now in Newsweek. Cheers. Somebody's going to cut that clip of my right arm fully extended too, by the way. I see you. The Doge has hired some legal big brains, which includes two former Supreme Court clerks, James Burnham, who clerked for Neil Gorsuch, and Keenan Kamek, who clerked for Samuel Alito, as also conservative. So, well, they're getting ready to go to battle at least. And they've got some big balls to be taken on. Jesus Christ, I can't believe this. Guys, I promised when my work schedule moved to the point that I could have a drinky drink on stream, that I wasn't going to just start getting hammered on stream night. Yeah, that might be changing here. Biggest Dickus, by the way, over on X. Because why wouldn't he have that name? CNN is seething about a Doge staffer named Big Balls who founded a company called Tesla.Sexy LLC.
Yes, so this is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online, so that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge. And we looked into his background. And so we found, several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.Sexy LLC, which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains. Yes, so this is a 19-year-old high school graduate.
All right. Back in the aviation news briefly, because I can't figure out for the life of me why we hear about no plane crashes for like 50 years. Actually, it's not 50 because we've only been 20 years since 9/11. But we hear of no plane crashes since 9/11, really. And then all of a sudden there are 3 within 3 weeks. This one was a little one, but again, somebody died in it, so it's not that little. Jet owned by Motley Crue's Vince Neil involved in fatal plane crash at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona. From Stephanie Price and Lorraine Taylor. A private jet owned by Vince Neil, the lead singer of Motley Crue, was involved in a fatal crash Monday at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona. Authorities say one person was killed and 3 others were injured when the landing gear on Neil's plane failed, causing it to careen off the runway and smash into a bigger jet. The jet is registered to Chromed in Hollywood Incorporated, a Wyoming-based company that lists Neil as its director, according to records reviewed by Fox News Digital. Oh, so the landing gear failed. And here I thought somebody kick-started the pilot's heart. On board Mr. Neil's plane were 2 pilots and 2 passengers. Mr. Neil was not on the plane, the statement reads. Mr. Neil's thoughts and prayers go out to everyone involved, and he's grateful for the critical aid of all the first responders assisting today. And then he took a big rail of Coke. Like, seriously, what is going on with these planes? Maybe people should be using trains and automobiles. Hillary Clinton got a jab in. And then Duffy came out and buried her. Clinton was talking about bureaucrats and crumbling infrastructure and said U.S. Airlines has gone 16 years without fatal crashes. Then MAGA fired the FAA chief, which is not true, by the way. He resigned a month before Trump took office. Gutted the Aviation Security Advisory Committee and threatened air traffic controllers with layoffs. Sean Duffy hits back and says, I know you're lashing out because Doge is uncovering your family's obscene grifting via U.S. aid. But I won't let you lie and distort facts. The FAA admin announced he resigned over a month before Trump took office. And the air traffic controllers were always exempt from Trump's civil service buyouts. The previous admin shamelessly used US DOT as a slush fund for the Green New scam, throwing away money and resources on wasteful environmental and social justice projects rather than updating our nation's antiquated air traffic control systems and other critical infrastructure. I am returning this department to its mission of safety by using innovative technology in transportation and infrastructure. Your team had its chance and failed. We're moving on without you because the American people want us to make America's transportation system great again. And yes, we're bringing the 22-year-olds with us. Was that a reference to big balls? I couldn't quite tell. Kind of a ballsy move, though, standing up to Hillary like that. A lot of people get a good hard case of depression after doing something like that. All right, on the Treasury front. Federal judge temporarily blocks Doge from accessing sensitive Treasury Department payment systems. From Alex Lowe and Alexandra Marquez. Alex and Alex. NPC News reporting. A federal judge on Saturday temporarily blocked political appointees and special government employees, including those who work for the Department of Government Efficiency, from accessing sensitive and confidential information stored within the Treasury Department. The decision comes after 19 states' attorneys general sued the federal government on Friday, alleging that tech mogul Musk and his Doge staffers have no authority to access Treasury Department data that includes American Social Security numbers and other confidential financial information. District Judge Paul A. Engelmeyer issued the temporary restraining order, which blocks the government from granting access to all political appointees, special government employees, and government employees detailed from an agency outside the Treasury Department or to any Treasury Department payment record, payment system or other data systems maintained by the Treasury Department containing personally identifiable information and or confidential financial information of payees. Engelmeyer's orders also requires anyone in those groups who may have had previous access to the sensitive data since Trump took office to immediately destroy any and all copies of material downloaded from the Treasury Department's records and systems. So this has sparked some controversy and turned a lot of people who were against the Biden admin ignoring court orders and who stood against the Biden admin accessing taxpayer information, Treasury Department's records, etc., to suddenly be in favor of the government defying court orders and accessing customer data. It's funny how that works. And it looks like there might be a trap in both ways off of this. I kind of think that the Treasury Department and the federal courts are setting a trap for the Trump admin to come back out and just kind of do it anyway. But when I look at a lot of this here, now, after having an injunction, because they can only do this for so long, they can only keep the Treasury Secretary away from the Treasury for X amount of time. And in that a little bit of time, I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of payment records that are destroyed that aren't going to be able to be found in the midst of this. But I can't bring myself down to a point, and I know Styx has come on and done this one, and I can't bring myself to this. I can't bring myself to a point where I come back and say, no, absolutely go in there and do whatever it is that you want to do and take the Marines and just take this stuff by force. Because I want to leave something for the next administration to not be able to do. I want to see this stuff as much as the next guy does, but I know when you start pulling shit like that, it makes it okay for other people to do it. I mean, look at Harry Reid and the judicial appointees and the Senate and how much that came and burned him in the fucking ass. I think he's still alive, but I still think he can't sit down after that one. A hearing has been set for February 14th for arguments on the Attorney General's request for a preliminary injunction in the case. The White House deemed the decision judicial overreach and called the judge an activist. Well, two things can be true at once. These frivolous lawsuits are akin to children throwing pasta at the wall to see if it will stick. Grandstanding government efficiency speaks volumes about those who'd rather delay a much-needed change with legal shenanigans than work with the Trump admin of ridding the government of waste, fraud, and abuse. White House Deputy Press Secretary Harrison Fields said in a statement to NBC News. So yes, at this point, Doge and the Treasury Secretary himself do not have access to Treasury records. The Donald does. Now, go in, seize the records with the Marine Corps. I don't condone. But hey, you have the power to declass everything as the president. So you can declass and leak as you see fit. I would rather go a route like that than going with guns blazing. See, what else do we have? Jerome Powell and the Fed Jerome Powell. No, the Fed Jerome Powell says Treasury payments system is currently safe. From Courtney Brown. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said he believes the Treasury Department's critical payment system is safe and that the Fed is committed to carrying out its role in the system with integrity. The system disperses trillions of dollars each year on behalf of Americans' government, including payouts for Social Security and tax refunds. Democrats fears that the Department of Government Efficiency could attempt to restrict payments it deems as wasteful. In violation of spending laws enacted by Congress, there are also risks of privacy breaches. That's not what they're afraid of, but They're afraid that the money dries up. Asked by Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, is the system safe today? Powell responded, I believe it is. And I will tell you that we're strongly committed to the integrity, efficacy, resilience, and all the things of the system, Powell continued in testimony Tuesday before the Senate Banking Committee. People do depend on this in a big way, and we're committed to that, he said. Going into part of the reasons why. Ex-employees say Tom Krause, tapped by Musk to overhaul the Treasury, was a hatchet man. Okay, you don't have to try to sell me on him. I'm already in favor of that for the Fed. From Max Zahn. An Elon Musk ally hired to overhaul the U.S. Department of Treasury has a lengthy record of undertaking hardline reforms in the private sector that demoralized staff and made them fear for their jobs. Okay, what's the downside of this argument? According to interviews with several former employees at his tech firm. I bet you they're all anonymous too. Tom Krause, the CEO of Silicon Valley-based cloud software group, oversaw layoffs at his company in each of his last 3 years while instituting a return-to-office mandate, rigid performance ratings, and a request that weekly updates be sent from the workers directly to Krause. The former employees told ABC News, echoing the sort of reforms that Musk's new Department of Government Efficiency has begun undertaking within government agencies. One former cloud software group employee said that she hid her pregnancy for fear it could make her a target for layoffs. We're going to go down that route. An ex-manager said they dreaded filing performance reviews of subordinates, knowing some workers may fall victim to the next cycle of cuts. Okay, if you're going to give them a bad review, why do you want to keep them around? Another former employee said they avoided expressing unease in the company emails or in the messaging app Slack out of concern that it could jeopardize their jobs. They're taking business practices popular in boardrooms on call clubs, and they're taking them into the government. Kathleen Rohn, a former senior content designer at Cloud Software Group, who retired in 2024, told ABC News. Still waiting for that downside. So, Krause in recent days has vaulted into a key position at the Treasury Department, overseeing its $5 trillion payment system, which sends funds to tens of millions of Americans for programs like Medicare and Social Security, the agency's website says. Which is fine because, the Trump admin themselves have said that those are off the table. In a press release, the agency said Krause brings decades of experience managing balance sheets to the agency's effort to maximize payment integrity. So, yeah, this might be part of the reason they're coming back and trying to block. Musk calls for impeachment of judge who blocked the Doge access at the Treasury. We call him a political appointee. He probably is an activist. He probably is. Justice is supposed to be blind. It hasn't been in this country for a long time. Of course he's called for the impeachment of him. I probably would too. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Requires 2/3 vote in the Senate for a federal judge, and you don't have 2/3 of the Senate. You need 66 senators to agree to get rid of him. You'll get 51 if you're lucky. By the way, how cool is the Oil Ocean Zone from Sonic 2? I've got an opinion piece from the New York Times, a former newspaper. What did Klavan used to call the op-ed section of the New York Times? Knucklehead Row. So we've got a piece from Knucklehead Row. 5 former Treasury Secretaries. Our democracy is under siege. This is from Robert E. Rubin, Lawrence H. Summers, Timothy Geithner, Jacob J. Liu, and Janet L. Yellen. The writers are former Treasury Secretaries. Well, if Robert Rubin, Lawrence Summers, Timothy Geithner, Jacob Liu, and Janet Yellen all say it's bad, well, it must be bad, right? 5 people I don't trust. Right there. Alright, what else do we have? So, Trump has been busy with the president of Japan. So, George at Behizi Tweets says, breaking! Trump just announced joint venture between the U.S. and Japan to sell American oil to Japan. It's going to cause a major economic boom to both countries. Amazing!
We're talking about the pipeline in Alaska, which is the closest point of major oil and gas to Japan by far. Less than half the distance of any other location. We're talking about a joint venture of some type between Japan and us, having to do with Alaska oil and gas, and that's very exciting. They're very excited about it, so are we. We're talking about the pipeline in Alaska, which...
So, and I mean, honestly, that would probably be it's a nice undercut to Japan, or I'm sorry, to Russia, who I believe supplies the majority of oil to Japan and the Middle East, who has to go through several thousand miles of hostile waters to get to Japan. Whereas with the U.S., if we go and look at our trusty map, let's get our trusty map up here. Bring this back over here. To go to Japan from Prudhoe Bay, you're running a pretty well straight line. You got to go a little bit around the archipelago to get there, but bing, you're there. There might be a little bit more to it because these guys don't typically care for us too much, and we're undercutting them to get oil to Japan. But otherwise, you got to come all the way around here to get up there. Or, you know, buy from Russia, who suck. What else do we have? Also from Behizi Tweets, from the same conference, actually. I'm going to take a step away from my desk while this one's playing. Breaking, the Prime Minister of Japan just informed Trump that the major Japanese car companies are opening factories in the U.S. Thousands of jobs are coming. Detroit will be the Motor City again. Now, that I would have a little bit harder time with believing, per se. Because I know Japan, I know their relationship with unions, and I've seen all the Toyota factories, and the Nissan factories, and the Honda factories that are already over here. And if you're in Detroit and making cars, you're pretty well bound to the UAW. And I don't think the Prime Minister of Japan is going to be down for that shit. So, pretty sure those are going to wind up in Georgia and Alabama and Texas, possibly North Carolina as well. I don't think they're going to Detroit.
And also, there is another good news that I would like to deliver to you. A Japanese automaker Isuzu has a plan to create a factory in the United States in the near future.
あるいは先ほど申し上げましたが、トヨタ自動車は 合衆国の工場を拡張するあるいは新設をするという計画を持って近々実行いたします。工場はこの4月から本格的に稼働いたします。
And as I touched upon the example of Toyota, they also have another plan to expand their factories as well as start to operate new factories in the near future. And as far as I understand, there is one factory to be fully operational starting the month of April this year.
If the plan is for it to be fully functional by April, I do hate to rain on MAGA's parade because this is still a good thing. But at that point, that would have started probably under Biden at that point. So, but I would like to see some more manufacturing come over here. I'd like to see some more American manufacturers do it over here. But jobs are jobs at this point too. A lot of people seem to like those the Japanese cars. I don't. Especially not the new ones. I like some of the old ones. But those are the ones that are not going to be coming off of factories. From USA Today, Trump says Japanese company will invest in, that's not what I want, heavily in US Steel, not own it, from Francesca Chambers and Joey Garrison. Trump said on Friday that Japanese-based Nippon Steel will look to invest in U.S. Steel rather than outright owning the iconic American company, after the sale of U.S. Steel was blocked by Biden. They've agreed to invest heavily in U.S. Steel as opposed to own it, and that sounds very exciting, Trump said on Friday after meeting Prime Minister Shigeru Ishibe at the White House. Trump said he will meet with the leaders of Nippon and U.S. Steel next week to help mediate the transaction. Like Biden, Trump has opposed the sale of Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel, the nation's second largest steel manufacturer, to Nippon, which has reached an agreement to buy the company, which had, not has, reached an agreement to buy the company for $14.9 billion. Biden argued in order of preventing the deal that is critical that America maintain its resilient supply chains. His lame duck admin used the Defense Production Act to prevent the proposed $14.9 billion purchase of Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel from going through in early January, delaying its order, telling Nippon Steel to drop its bid to purchase the company until June. U.S. Steel will make products that will contribute not only to the U.S. and Japan, but also to the whole world, Ishiba said through a translator. It's not one-sided, it will be reciprocal, it will be mutually beneficial. As Trump's meeting with Ishiba got underway, Trump said the two leaders would be discussing the proposed sale, but he had not shifted his position. No, I think we're going to be discussing that today, Trump said. No, I haven't. Trump came out against the deal as presidential candidate and reaffirmed in December, after his White House win, that he was totally against the sale of U.S. Steel to a foreign company. He pledged to help the company through tax incentives and tariffs, adding, "As president, I will block this deal from happening. Buyer beware." So, and I wouldn't mind seeing them, go throw some investment into it to see if they can get it back propped up, maybe get a little bit of return out of it. But no, that's our company, that's our people. And I don't want to see something beholden to a foreign company again, whereas if for whatever reason we get into a tizzy with them, which we've been in a tizzy with Japan before, that suddenly a bunch of American workers are out of jobs, and no way to go back and make weapons for war, if for whatever reason we wind up there again. And I hope that we don't. My first position, as always, remains first anti-war. Kristi Noem and Tom Homan are talking about the FBI leaking ICE raids. Newsweek reporting from BLL Raymond. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has accused the FBI of corruption, alleging that the Bureau leaked plans for large-scale immigration enforcement operations in the LA area. Vowing to take action against what she called crooked deep state agents, Noem condemned the leaks, which she said undermined the federal efforts to enforce immigration law. Newsweek contacted the Department of Homeland Security for further comment via email outside of normal office hours. Immigration was a key element of Trump's 2024 campaign and helped Republicans sweep to power on a national level. While large majorities of both Democrats and Republicans agree that the immigration system is broken, as indicated in a recent New York Times Ipsos poll, Americans disagree on how policies such as deportations should be carried out. On Friday, the LA Times reported, citing an internal government document it had reviewed, that ICE would oversee a large-scale operation targeting individuals without legal status in the U.S. or those with pending removal orders. The Times said the document had been shared with certain government officials last week. According to the outlet, a federal law enforcement source speaking anonymously. It's probably the janitor again. Out of fear of reprisal, that's going to be in every anonymous source by this point. For the record, from here until the end of eternity, or at least until the end of this administration, that it's not just going to be an anonymous source anymore. So now the Mogwai needs a second cat, because he needs an anonymous source and he needs fear of reprisal. Said officers and agents from the LA FBI and Drug Enforcement Administration were being brought in to assist with the immigration enforcement operation. They needed more bodies, the official told the Times. On Thursday, Homan, Trump's border czar, blamed media leaks for hindering a large-scale operation in a Denver suburb. And again, they're going to very, very left-wing cities, so it could be media leak, it could be local government officials, it could be the FBI. I don't necessarily think it is completely the FBI at this point. I mean, it could be just straight up Gavin Newsom at this point. We've got another one here. Some video. FBI accused of leaking ICE raids in Los Angeles from Fox.
Plan in Los Angeles. The DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is now pointing the finger at the FBI for a possible leak about the raid. Let's bring in former acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey. So this whole thing started with the raid in Aurora and Denver a little while ago. Now it's spreading across the country. Here's what the LA Times wrote about it. Leaked documents says large-scale immigration enforcement action coming soon to LA. Federal law enforcement agents are planning to carry out a, quote, large-scale immigration enforcement action in the Los Angeles area before the end of February, according to an internal government document reviewed by the Times. I mean, where are these leaks coming from?
Yeah, if that's right, they're coming from the government, which is pretty scary that somebody would be putting that information out there, because regardless of what you think of Trump's policies or immigration policies, one, they're lawful, and two, you're putting men and women at danger every time they make an arrest. So if you tip somebody off that they're about to be arrested, that could put law enforcement in danger, other members of the community at danger, not to mention it thwarts the ability to deport people. But ultimately, I think people are going to realize this administration has a lot of resolve here. So these people are going to be deported. And when they get caught, the first question will be, hey, who tipped you off? How did you find out about it? And they'll backtrack it. And my guess is somebody's going to be ultimately held accountable. And by held accountable, I mean arrested for obstruction or maybe other crimes.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem seems to think that the leak is coming from within the FBI. Here's what she put on X. The FBI is so corrupt, she writes. We will work with any and every agency to stop leaks and prosecute these crooked deep state agents to the fullest extent of the law. Do you really believe that FBI agents would leak this?
I certainly hope not, because, you know, I was a federal prosecutor for 17 years, and we did lots of operations that involved lots.
And I mean, it's well known that the FBI has been fairly well against the Trump admin, basically because he says he's going to go get rid of their jobs. So, yeah, I can understand some of that as well. All right, what else do we have? Tom Homan accuses FBI of leaking information about ICE raids, lives at risk. Let's just go to the video on that one. He brought out the T word this time.
Tom Homan. Tom, where are these leaks coming from?
Of course it's Hannity.
Well, look, we think it's coming from inside, and we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person under investigation right now. The California leak, Secretary Noem, she's correct. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI. But I talked to Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they're going to go to jail. They're going to criminally prosecute. So we're all over it. We got
Tom Homan. Tom, where are these leaks coming from?
Well, look.
Never thought I'd see a civil war within the government. Apparently, that's what we're going to see right now. All right. We're coming down to the end of the time here. I got some stuff left over from last week I want to go over. One of the big ones that I have here was the USAID one, which I'm going to come right out and tell. Most of the people who are crying about USAID didn't know existed until 3 weeks ago. I'm going to put that out there. Apparently there was a shooting in Sweden as well. So I wanted to look into this, and I have not read this article yet myself. I know I should have somewhere between now and then, but I have not at this point read this one. But this one is entitled, What USAID Does and Why Trump and Musk Want to Get Rid of It. From Ellen Nickmeyer and Meg Kinnard. Dozens of senior officers put on leave, thousands of contractors laid off, a freeze put on billions of dollars in humanitarian assistance to other countries. Over the last 2 weeks, Trump's admin has made significant changes to the U.S. agency charged with delivering humanitarian assistance overseas that's left aid organizations agonizing over whether they can continue with programs such as nutritional assistance for malnourished infants and children. Then President JFK established the U.S. Agency for International Development, shocker there, known as USAID. During the Cold War in the decade since, Republicans and Democrats have fought over the agency and its funding. Here's a look at what its history, and the changes made since Trump took office. Kennedy created USAID at the height of the U.S. Cold War struggle with the Soviet Union. He wanted a more efficient way to counter Soviet influence abroad through foreign assistance, and saw the State Department as frustratingly bureaucratic at doing that. Congress passed the Foreign Assistance Act, and Kennedy set up USAID as an independent agency in 1961. USAID had outlived the Soviet Union, which fell in 1991. Today's supporters of USAID argue U.S. assistance in countries that counters Russian and Chinese influence. China has its own Belt and Road Foreign Aid program, worldwide operating in many countries, that the U.S. also has as partners. Critics say the programs are wasteful to promote a liberal agenda. What's going on with USAID? On his first day in office on January 20th, Trump implemented a 90-day freeze on foreign assistance. 4 days later, Peter Morocco, a returning political appointee from Trump's first term, drafted a tougher-than-expected interpretation of that order, a move that shut down thousands of programs around the world and forced furloughs and layoffs. Marco Rubio, Little Marco, has since moved to keep more kinds of strictly life-saving emergency programs going during the freeze. But confusion over what programs are exempted from the Trump admin stop work orders and fear of losing U.S. aid permanently is still freezing aid and development work globally. Dozens of senior officials have been put on leave, thousands of contractors laid off, and employees were told Monday not to enter its Washington headquarters, and USAID's website and its account on the X platform have been taken down, which, by the way, I did look for that earlier. And yes, the USAID website is taken down. I wanted to read their mission statement, but no, it's a part of the Trump admin crackdown, and that's hitting across the federal government and its programs, but USAID and foreign aid are among those hit the hardest. Rubio said the admin's aim was a program-by-program review of which projects make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. The decision to shut down U.S.-funded programs during the 90-day review meant the U.S. was getting a lot more cooperation from recipients of humanitarian development and security assistance, Rubio said. Critics say Republicans typically push to give the State Department, which provides overall foreign policy guidance, to USAID more control of its policy and funds. Democrats typically promote USAID autonomy and authority, which that in and of itself is part of the reason that I kind of like the fact that Rubio's coming in and putting the block on this here. I don't want these agencies to go back and run without some kind of oversight. I want them to come back out and have to defend why they are there. And I'm not opposed to a lot of U.S. aid if it's going for actual humanitarian purposes. But I want them to have accountability, and I want them to have to beg for it. I do. As a Florida senator, Rubio often called for more transparency on foreign assistance, which again would be nice, but was generally supportive. In 2017, a social media post, Rubio said foreign assistance was not charity, that the U.S. must make sure that it's well spent, and called foreign aid critical to our national security. And again, even though I'm not a big fan of the world wars and world policing, I get where he's coming from for that. Because if we don't put it out there, Russia will. But we should have an audit. We should sit down and figure out where it's going for. Not give them autonomy just to say, give me more money and let me go back and do that. We should have an itemized data sheet of every single transaction that goes there, what it's going for, what its return is. So yes, I am 100% in favor of this. Alright. And as we know, Trump has moved to put nearly all USAID Washington staff on leave, from Nahal Tusi and Carmen Pawn. The Trump admin is making moves to place nearly all of the U.S. Agency for International Development's Washington-based staff on paid admin leave, according to U.S. aid official and person familiar with the situation. The move affects thousands of people, and it's the latest blow the admin is striking against the agency, which is America's primary vehicle for providing humanitarian aid. Tech mogul Elon Musk, a Trump ally, running an initiative aimed at downsizing the government, has made U.S. aid a particular target. A person familiar with the situation, unnamed sources as usual, said some 1,400 people will be notified Tuesday, on top of about 600 who were placed on leave starting Sunday night. That amounts to the majority of the Washington-based staff, many of them civil and foreign service officers. The person said the action was approved by Secretary of State Marco Rubio's team. The individual added the person was granted anonymity because of the sensitivity of the personnel moves, which is a fancy way to say fear of reprisal. A senior USAID official who was granted anonymity, guess why? Fear of reprisal. Said the agency's Human Resources Department said in a meeting Tuesday morning it had already revoked system access for more than 1,400 staffers, an indication that many more are being put on leave than those previously announced. Yes, the fear of reprisal, that's going to be the new buzzword for the next 4 years because, and again, as I was talking about this before, the big one's going to be that Trump is the tyrannical dictator, and these people are in fear of their lives for reprisal. Fear them! NPC News has an article just saying that, yes, if we don't go about and fund condom research in Gaza, then Russia will. I'm going to skip the rest of the USAID stuff. Except for this one, this little clip from Jamie Raskin. Rep. Jamie Raskin blasts Elon Musk outside the USAID headquarters, declaring Democrats will block Doge from eliminating government waste and fraud. Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID. He doesn't have the power to destroy it, and who will stop him? We are. We don't have a fourth branch of government called Elon Musk. Meanwhile, the U.S. is $37 trillion in debt, and Americans elected President Trump, who promised to empower Musk and Doge to cut wasteful spending. I'd like to see the debt get paid down again. We're not going to pay it off, by the way, in this term. I don't care what MAGA says and how much they believe in their Fuhrer, their saint, their patron, their priest, whatever the hell you want to call him. We're not going to pay off $37 trillion in 4 years. All right, Raskin, what do you have to say?
Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID.
Is he drunk?
The United States Congress did for the American people. And just like Elon Musk did not create USAID, he doesn't have the power to destroy it. And who's going to stop him? We are. We're going to stop him.
He's drunk. Listen to him.
Elon Musk, you may have illegally seized power over the financial payment systems of the United States Department of Treasury, but you don't control the money of the American people. The United States Congress does that under Article 1 of the Constitution. And just like the president who is elected to something cannot impound the money of the people, we don't have a fourth branch of government called Elon Musk. And that's going to become real clear.
It's the fourth branch of government. Ooh. Ooh. Scary. Fourth branch of government. All right. What else do we have? RFK Jr. is going up for a vote. I'm going to skip that one. This one, though, I'm going to skip that one, too. I have something on that one on stuff that I hate, so I'm going to go with that one instead. So there were a couple things from the last administration that I wanted to go over here before we took off for the day. Because remember, when I moved officially on January 16th, was when I moved here for the first time. First time I set foot in this home as my personal property, or real estate, I guess this wouldn't be personal property, but the first time that I stepped foot in this home as property, as my property, was on January 16th. And with that being said, yes, we were still under the very end of the Biden admin at that point. And with that being said, now that we've looked at some of this stuff here, there were some things that happened after we got off the air a month ago. It's almost been a month at this point. It'll be a month on Saturday that I lived here. But Biden went on a pardon spree. Because apparently he thinks he has to protect people from the evil orange man. And the dates are funny with this too, because yeah, it all goes back to like 2014 for all these dates. Biden pardons Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, J6 committee members. Which, and again, I have to wonder what the significance of 2014 was with a lot of this here. From Anders Hagstrom. Because if I was going to do a preemptive pardon, fearing reprisal from a political enemy, I would go back like their entire lives. Biden pardoned Mark Milley and others who speculated may have faced investigations under the incoming Trump admin on Monday. Biden's pardons come just hours before he's set to depart the White House, and Trump takes the oath of office once again. The pardon also applies to a litany of people involved in the January 6th Unselect Committee investigation. In addition to named individuals, the pardon applies to members of Congress and staff who served on the Select Committee, and the U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metro police officers who testified before the Select Committee. Notably, Special Counsel Jack Smith, FBI Director Wray, and AG Garland are not included in the pardon, despite speculations that they may face backlash from the incoming admin. I'd actually be surprised if they did, and I'm going to be completely honest with that. I think they're in the wrong for some things, but I don't think that they're actually going to see any sort of backlash in this. Fauci accepted the pardon in a statement shortly after the Biden admin announced the move, claiming he was the subject to politically motivated threats of investigation and prosecution. Oh, let me be perfectly clear. I have committed no crime, and there are no possible grounds for any alleged allegation or threat of criminal investigation or prosecution of me. The fact is, however, that the mere articulation of these baseless threats and the potential that they will be acted upon create immeasurable and intolerable distress for me and my family. For these reasons, I acknowledge and appreciate the action that Biden has taken on my behalf. Milley thanked Trump. Condemnation began to pour in almost immediately. Eric Schmidt blasted Biden's legacy minutes after the order dropped. Now, there are people that say that the Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to these people anymore. I don't think that's true, and I would not count on that either, because you still have the right to protect yourself from self-incrimination, and that is partially in the scrutiny that people would give to you for taking some of these actions. Some of the actions that you have. Like, you can still face down public scrutiny over shit. That's, I think, a big part of the reason that people don't self-incriminate. It's not just the backlash that the state gives you, it's the backlash that the people give you. He also went through and pardoned large amounts of his family. But what was interesting, and this is 3 minutes straight, and I think I have, what do I have? Kinzinger for another minute. So I have 4 minutes of people saying that if you take a pardon, it means you're guilty. Let me let's take a guess at what all these people have in common.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
I imagine if he decides to issue these preemptive pardons, it will be cast in a way that he is protecting his family and protecting their reputations from, villainous exterior forces that are against him.
First off, we should just take a deep breath and acknowledge the audacity of a president who's so clearly concerned about his own criminal culpability and that of his family members that pardons are a major obsession with him.
The idea of a kind of prospective pardon, this sort of permanent federal get-out-of-jail-free card, that seems to be what we're talking about in the case of this, right, with Giuliani and his 3 eldest children who, as far as we know, have not been convicted of a crime. Maybe they've committed a lot, and they don't want to face action. I don't know. It's weird. I wouldn't ask for a pardon. I don't think I deserve one because I don't think I've done anything criminal. But, where does that come from, that concept that you can just kind of wave your magic pardon wand?
We have Tish James. We have Xavier Becerra. Mimi Roca is literally my DA in my town. There will be opportunities to prosecute these people regardless if they abuse the pardon power as they are thinking.
Hopefully, Ellie, there will be a skyfall on this entire crime family, and there will be another day for them to die.
The president does indeed pardon, let's say, Rudy Giuliani or any members of his family. Would you see that, and I asked Preet Bharara this question, as essentially an admission of guilt?
I certainly would view it that way. I think millions of Americans would view it that way. If there was no belief in criminality, why would he think a pardon was necessary?
CNN has learned President Biden will pardon his son Hunter Biden.
Just remember, a preemptive pardon is an admission of guilt, unless you're a Democrat. Kinzinger, the same thing. Now pardon. Adam Kinzinger says he didn't want one 2 weeks ago. The second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something.
Biden issue pardons for the January 6th committee members, including yourself?
No, I don't want it. Look, here's the
You
thing.
don't want it?
No, because the second a pardon is issued, and look, I understand the theory behind it, because Donald Trump has clearly said he's going to go after everybody. And it's not going to be for the January 6th investigation. What they'll do is they'll weaponize other investigations. They'll look into everything and start an investigation that'll end up coming to naught, force people to pay money. This happened to Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, as he was forced to defend himself. But the second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something. I'm guilty of nothing besides bringing the truth to the American people and in the process embarrassing Donald Trump, because for 187 minutes he sat there and did absolutely nothing and showed how weak and scared he truly was. So no, I don't want it. And, the bottom line is, if he wants to bring up January 6th again, we've had all this talk about how we're moving on from January 6th, and trust me, Anderson, I would love to. My life has been defined by this for 4 years. But if he wants to bring it back, I will be happily talking about everything the committee did and learned and re-embarrassed.
What some people may not realize is you're saying you don't want a pardon. Fighting whatever might come your way can cost you and your family, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, you think about it, and this happened with.
Just remember, if you take the pardon, it means you're guilty. Mike Johnson has announced that Congress will investigate these pardons. They won't. Well, they might, but they're not going to find anything. Zelensky, which we'll be talking about him and things that I hate today too, by the way. Zelensky claims Ukraine only received $75 billion of the over $177 billion sent in aid. Where did the money go? The American media will never share this. Make it go viral.
Дивіться.
Look, when I hear, and I heard before, and today we hear from the U.S.
І сьогодні ми чуємо від Сполучених Штатів Америки, що Америка
that Americans gave
дала
Ukraine hundreds of billions,
Україні
177 to be more precise.
177, якщо
Bring that down for the audio platform.
Більш точно. Така звучала точна
That's
цифра,
what was
яку
the exact figure
підтримала
sounded like, which was supported or voted by the Congress.
організації.
Look, as the president of a warring country, I tell you we've received just over 75.
Більше 75.
That is 100 billion of these 177 or 200, some people even say, that we never received. And this is important because we're talking about specific things. Because we got it not with money, but with weapons. We got 70-something billions worth of it. There's training, there's additional transport. There are not only prices for weapons.
Є навчання, тренування, є додатковий транспорт, є не тільки ціну на зброю, були гуманітарні програми,
There were humanitarian programs, social, etc. But when they say Ukraine during the war received 200 billion to support the army, etc.
на підтримку армії, тощо, це неправда.
This is not true.
Я не знаю, де всі ці
I don't even know where all the money is. I wonder where all the money is. Zelensky also is warning that peace talks without Ukraine are dangerous after Trump claims meeting with Russians are going well. Which I actually have to agree with him on this one, because if you're going to talk about concessions, peace deals, etc., yes. The other person who's going to be making concessions needs to be in the room. That's kind of a fucking given. Excluding Ukraine from US-led talks involving the withdrawal of Russian troops from Kiev's eastern front would set a dangerous precedent for dictators across the globe, warned Zelensky. Which, and again, we'll be talking more about this in Things That I Hate. If there will be direct talks between America and Russia without Ukraine, it is very dangerous, I think, Zelensky said in a Saturday interview with the Associated Press. They may have own relations, but talking about Ukraine without this is dangerous for everyone. Zelensky argued that doing so would validate Russian President Vladimir Putin's brutal invasion and show that he was right because he received impunity or compromise. This will mean that anyone can act like this, and this will be signal to other leaders of big countries who think about doing something similar. I still say that the Donbass region wrote a letter to Zelensky and said, hey, we want out, and Zelensky told them to fuck themselves collectively. The Ukrainian president's comments came before Trump on Sunday suggested his admin had already begun talks with Moscow and claimed that they were going pretty well. I don't know if they're going well or not at this point. I just want this to be over. Alright, and the last things on the news today before we move on to things I like and things that I hate come to us from, starting off the Hill and then from Fox News. The DNC has picked Ken Martin and David Hogg. They're doubling down on their identity politics and they picked two white guys. I'm actually going to refresh this one to see if I can get the video for that. Because this is video.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Monday. Thank you for tuning in. There is so much news to get to, as there often is Monday morning. So much happening over the weekends now. We never get a break, Linda.
Could hardly sleep, Robbie, but I'm glad to see you this Monday morning.
Glad to see you as well.
What's on your radar?
Happy to tell you. Well, President Donald Trump is determined to bring foreign governments to heel and is moving forward with tariffs on our neighbors, Canada and Mexico, in order to encourage them to take border security more seriously. Now, even if you believe, as many fervent supporters of MAGA do, that it's a necessary move to shore up U.S. national security and convince the rest of the world that Trump means business, then this past weekend's Democratic National Committee leadership elections, where a new chair was elected to replace outgoing chair Jamie Harrison. That new chair is Ken Martin, a Minnesota politician and previous vice chair. Now, the best thing about Ken Martin is that he was opposed by some members of the Democratic establishment. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries all endorsed his leading opponent, Ben Wilker. That should be a badge of honor. The leaders of the party have driven off a cliff given Dems' recent electoral performance. But even so, Martin does not seem to think the Dems have a messaging problem. On the contrary, he confidently assured Democrats gathered for the leadership election that the party already, quote, has the right message. Worse still, Martin and virtually every other nominee position doubled or even tripled down on identity politics as the way forward for Democrats. The Atlantic magazine's Jonathan Chait described a meeting that was marred by, quote, a land acknowledgement, multiple shrieking interruptions by angry protesters, and a general affirmation that its strategy had been sound, except perhaps insufficiently committed to legalistic race and gender essentialism, end quote. In fact, outgoing chair Jamie Harrison spent significant time explaining that the rules for the vice chair race specify that, quote, when we have a gender non-binary candidate for office, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 officers must be gender balanced. That sounds like a kind of parody of wokeness that one might hear on a South Park sketch.
That's even worse at this point.
Supported
so, I know almost nothing about Ken Martin. He's some sort of politician from Minnesota. White guy, because they think that they lost by not appealing to white guys. And then, of course, David Hogg, which the new DNC vice chair set social media ablaze after radical posts exposed learned absolutely nothing from Deirdre Hebe over at Fox News. Newly elected DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, a 24-year-old gun control activist, an emerging voice in the Democratic Party, is the DNC's first Gen Z Vice Chair. He has the digital footprint to prove it. Are you ready to go on the offense? We have to win back our young people. I'm the only candidate in this race for any of these positions that's under 30. We had a 20-point shift to the right of our young people. We must show young people we give a damn about them, that we support them, we invest in them, Hogg said at the DNC's winter meeting. Yet Hogg could be backed into a defensive position as he assumes his new role as vice chair. I've raised over $11 million in the past year to support the future of our party because I don't just tweet, Hogg said. I don't just talk the talk, I also walk the walk, and I knock the knock on doors in this country. Hogg's old posts have gone viral as the conservative activists have sounded the alarm about his past policy positions and rhetoric against conservatives. In 2022, he rallied around several left-wing positions, including legalizing all drugs, which I also support, by the way, and supporting 100% tax after your first $1 billion. How radical, you ask? I don't think anyone should have over $1 billion in assets. There should be 100% tax after your first $1 billion, Hogg posted on X. I think we need to do what Australia did in regards to guns. We need universal health care, free college for all, legalize all the drugs. Months later, he would said he would prefer to own a Porsche than having kids, claiming it's better for the environment. Like, I'm never planning on having kids. Thank God, by the way. I'd much rather own a Porsche and have a Portuguese water dog and a golden doodle, Hogg posted on X in September 22. Long term, it's cheaper, better for the environment, and will never tell you that it hates you or ask you to pay for college. Hogg has also acknowledged in 22 that any politician doing anything with me is in effect committing political suicide. So they haven't learned their lesson. And before we take off and do things that I like and things that I hate, I wanted to do one more on David Hogg, because Politimath actually brings up a very, very good point about David Hogg. I'll never get over the fact that there were 2 students who came out of the Stoneman Douglas massacre who represented the right and left of the debate. Both were accepted into Harvard. The right-winger had astonishing grades, scores, and credentials. The left-winger, Hogg, was a mushy, mediocre pick. Obviously, would never have gotten in except for that he leveraged his politics into a Harvard admission. Well, and his daddy was an FBI agent too. That helped. They destroyed the right-winger, fucking crushed him with a leak of private messages he sent when he was 14, protecting, of course, the person who leaked those messages. They destroyed a teenager because they didn't like his politics. Meanwhile, Hogg has bounced from failure to failure. He's a visible sign of how the left wing elevates idiots, lavishes them with money and opportunity, and coddles them when they fail. And before I finish off this post, I want to point out why they do this with this person, because this person can be controlled. And the belief is that if they put a young white male up there, they'll have the Obama effect, is what the belief is. That black people will get more excited, well, not necessarily black people in this instance, but with Obama. There was a overwhelming landslide of black people who wanted to vote more often than they did. In a higher volume, I should say, not more often. But in a higher volume than they did, because there was finally a president that looked like them. And the DNC thinks that if they go and put somebody from Gen Z into their vice chair position, that they're going to have the exact same effect. That people will just come out and say, this person's 24. Well, we have to go out and support Democrats now because they're listening to us and they want people like us to be in politics again. They don't care about Hogg's views. They care about the fact that he has an undying lust for the Democratic Party. And he's young. And hoping that nobody will see past any of that. And now this dipshit is the DNC vice chair. I hope he brings every ounce of his stupidity into this organization and grinds it into a fine paste. Maybe then he'll be eligible for a lifetime position as a tenured faculty, which is probably what he's going to do after they lose another election in a row because of him. I've said long ago, and I continue to say, I want Democrats to be a party that I can vote for. Not that I would, but I want them to be a party that I could vote for. I want to have a choice when I go to the ballot box, and they're not giving me a choice. They're giving me David Hoggs of the world. I want union worker, work for the little guy, Democrat, not stupid progressive Democrat like this. And while I cringe at the idea of more MAGA Republicans, that's kind of the position that I want, is more of MAGA and Republicans, more of the we also want to work for the little guy Republican message. I want these people to be warring and fighting and actually both have positions that could appeal to the every layman voter. But instead they put a Minnesota billionaire and a Harvard graduate in as their vice chairs. How does this talk to the union workers who gave up college so they could provide it for their kids? Or who couldn't afford it so they went to go work at a coffee shop instead? The Democrats have not learned, and they will continue to not learn at this point. Let's do a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate, and head out of here for the night. Actually, it's a bunch of things that I hate. But first, we're going to do what I failed to do last week because I couldn't remember where we left off. I checked the transcripts on episode 971, and we left off at the 77th, so we will move on to the 79th rule of acquisition. Beware the Vulcan greed for knowledge. This is from a reference book that went along with the S9, the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition, and in this we talk about the Vulcan greed for knowledge. Beware of it. Because with the Vulcan greed for knowledge is the Vulcan greed for the ability to pick apart your deals and put you in a position where you cannot be the salesman that you could be. So, and this goes a lot for a lot of consumers. Now, you do have to respect your consumers, and I do like to sell to an informed consumer. I prefer that because that person has done his research and still comes to me. But the greed for knowledge, number one, doesn't cost anything, so you can't recoup your latinum in it. And number two, will lead to your arguments being picked apart and possibly made public as well, if you do try to stretch the truth a little bit as you make your selling. So, the 79th rule of acquisition, beware the Vulcan greed for knowledge. Let's do a couple things that I like. I have a can of this sitting here. This is not a paid promotion, by the way. I'm going to put that back out there. Celsius is not paying me, so I will not be drinking their product on camera. The only products I drink on camera are Quick Trip bottles, even though that's been refilled from my refrigerator like 40 times, and my own brand of wine and mead, PWJJ Winery. That was made, not in this house obviously, because we haven't started a batch in this house, but that was made in my previous little closet that I used to live in. I'll drink that on stream, and I'll even have the bottle here because, well, I made it. This is mine. But I will come back out and say that this is a thing that I like. And I came off of Bang because they got rid of all of my favorite flavors. If Bang brought back the birthday cake, the chocolata, the pina colada, the purple haze they still have, and I still like that one. What are the other ones that they got rid of that I really, really liked? There were a bunch. The champagne, the lemon drop, I liked that one a lot. If they went back and got back all of those that I liked, I might be in a bit of a crisis as to which brand that I want to keep following. Because I do like Celsius, and I tried them when I could no longer. Well, I could still drink Bang, but just because they got rid of so many of my favorite flavors, I wanted to take my business elsewhere. And for a long time, I couldn't find a case, which you can get for usually a lot cheaper, of my favorite that included my favorite flavor, rather, which is Fantasy Vibe, which is Mandarin Orange and Marshmallow. And I finally found one. It's the Beach Collection. And they have Tropical Vibe, Fantasy Vibe, and they have this one that I have up on the screen here, the Playa Vibe, which is a pina colada substitute. And it's a competitive flavor versus what the Bang Pina Colada was. A lot of coconut, some cherry mixed into it, and it's really good. I have not seen this in a store anywhere. If you can find it, go try one. Or get the case that has the Fantasy Vibe and the Tropical Vibe in it. It's good. If you like pina colada, if you like coconut, this is the one for you. I can tell you that right off the bat. And of course, this hasn't risen to my point of favorite yet. That one will remain to be the Fantasy Vibe, the Mandarin Orange and Marshmallow one. But this is a good second place. I have an empty can on my desk because I drank it earlier today. Actually, I think that is from last week that's still on my desk. Yeah, because I had the Tropical Vibe today. That's my fresh can. I just finished this one off because it's been sitting on my desk for a week. And it was still really good, but on a Thursday, I was doing some work and just started and never finished it. So, give it a try. If you enjoy coconut and things like that, I think you're going to like it. I sure do. What are some other things that I like today? I'm telling you what, if Celsius, and I saw that Lunacy said yuck to this one, if Celsius brings back brings out a birthday cake flavor, I'm never going back to Bang. Fuck that. Birthday cake is my favorite artificial flavor. There's actually, yeah, there's a box of General Mills loaded cereal on the back counter over there. Birthday cake. I was eating a little bit of that because I didn't start dinner before I started stream because I had a bit of a late lunch. And I was eating some of that. It's really good. All right. On the tariffs front, now I dropped all the tariff stories from last week that I had up there, but I did want to talk a bit about this one here because this is one of the hopeful and intended outcomes of the tariffs, is that these companies will move their operations to the U.S. as well. Two of Canada's fastest growing food companies are now planning to move their operations to the U.S. to avoid paying for the tariffs. Midday Squares was initially planned to expand its factory in Montreal. However, with 70% of its sales in the U.S., they're now considering expanding to Ohio, Wisconsin, and Missouri, which would mean more jobs in my state. We need the U.S. as a business. It's critical. Midday Squares founder Jake Carl's Flourish Pancakes is planning to do the same as well. The tariffs are working. Now, when Trump did the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, it was to try to push them to step up border security on their side to stop people from coming over who shouldn't be over here, who are trying to jump the border. It's not as big of a deal with Canada, but it's a big one with Mexico. But one of the unintended side effects, and when it goes with tariffs, that's one thing for me, is I'm not necessarily in favor of having tariffs as a means of function and fund the government per se, because, well, I'm against funding the government to begin with. But I would, as president, enact them in a form and fashion that is retaliatory, because Canada, Mexico, Europe have huge tariffs on U.S. goods coming into them. So they want to sell in our markets, but they don't want to sell our stuff in their markets. And those tariffs I would go up, just basically match the tariff that's on our similar good going into their country, so that if they want to sell in our country, they have to basically treat them the same way that they treat us. And if they want us to treat them better, then they have to bring their own tariffs down. So, happy about that. The old joke that comes out every tax season, I want to talk about this one here. Greg, with a bunch of numbers behind him, who is actually legit. I like this guy. He looks like a spam account, but he's actually a cool guy. IRS, U.S. taxes, me. How much do I owe? IRS, you get to figure that out. Me, can I just pay what I want? IRS, no, we know exactly how much you owe, but you have to guess the number too. Me, what if I guess wrong? IRS, jail. Happy tax season, guys. I know I gotta go over it too, because we're having a struggle getting my W-2s from the company that it used to be before my current company bought out. CNN talking a little bit about what the Trump derangement syndrome is doing to the people who suffer from it. Brigitte Gabriel says this is like Trump's superpower. Finding a bunch of 80-20 issues and getting on the 80, and everyone who's reflexively against him gets on the 20, and now the Democrat Party has a 31% approval rating. This is why. Let's listen.
He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why. I don't know. He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics,
and yeah, I mean, one thing with, and I was open about it when I agreed with something that Biden was doing, which was not very often. But I'm not just going to take the opposite position of Biden because he's Biden. If he does right, I'm going to say, yes, he's doing right. If he does wrong, I'm going to tell him he was doing wrong and Biden was doing a lot of wrong. Trump is doing a lot of wrong as well, and I call him out on it. There's currently discussion over whether or not we're going to get back into forever wars under Trump, which I will be against at that point. And we'll be vocal about it. I don't give a fuck what MAGA and Cat Turd have to say about me. I will be very vocal about the fact that if Trump comes out and brings us back into forever war territory, then no, he will not get my support again for the rest of his term and tenure. And any of his hand-picked successors after the fact will get jeered by me. I will stay the fuck home if we go back into the Bushite world warring issues. But so much of the left is so against Trump in general that if Trump came out in favor of air, they'd suffocate themselves. All right. Is this in things that I hate, or do I still have stuff I like yet? Yeah, there's still stuff I like yet. This is supposed to be in things that I hate. All right. Last one of things that I like before we go into stuff that I hate is that Trump has directed the Treasury to stop minting new pennies, citing cost. And a lot of this is stemming from inflation and inflationary pressures coming to the penny. Now, yes, we measure our money in hundredths of a dollar. But we got to the point, and we've been getting to that point. It costs more to mint a penny than a penny is worth since I was in high school. But now we're pushing it almost 4 times the cost to make the penny than the penny's actually worth. So, yeah, I think it's about time to drop that. As far as what we do about that, do we just force everything to go to the nearest nickel if you're paying for cash? I don't know. A lot of people just use digital currency anyway, their debit card or things like that. So I don't know that this is going to be a huge problem at this point, but as much as I like the old pennies and collecting them, I do think it's time as well. Trump says he's directed the Treasury Department to stop minting new pennies, citing the rising cost of producing the 1-cent coin. For far too long, the U.S. has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful, Trump wrote in a post on Sunday night to his Truth Social site. I've instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. The move is the latest in what has been a rapid-fire effort by his new admin to enact sweeping change through executive orders and proclamations on issues ranging from immigration to gender and diversity to the name of the Gulf of Mexico. The U.S. Mint reported losing $85.3 million in 2024 on the nearly 3.2 billion pennies it produced. Every penny cost nearly 3.7 cents, up from 3.1 cents the year before. Yeah, when I was in high school, was when the cost to make the penny exceeded the cost, or the price of the penny. And it was like 1.01 for the first time. And now it's 0.37 to make the penny. And we were talking about eliminating the penny all the way back then. And that's been 23, I'm not that old yet, 23 years ago. Will it happen? We don't know. The Mint actually loses money on the nickel as well, because the 5-cent coins cost nearly 14 cents to make. I'm glad it's being discussed, though. I am. I don't know if there'd be a solution to a different kind of penny, different kind of materials to make it worthwhile. I don't know. Let's do a few things that I hate. You can tell I'm a lightweight from drinking because I get up so early in the morning because I'm already starting to feel a buzz and I'm only on my second glass. Let's do a few things that I hate. Oh, I got the hiccups too. Maybe I am hammered. Outbreak updates, which, by the way, there's been no corroboration of this. I looked. But a lot of this, I think, is going to start to be propaganda as well, to try to get people to believe that the plague has started under Trump, even though he's only been in office for 3 weeks. I'm getting reports from Indiana something is seriously wrong. Hospitals are filling up with flu A patients on ventilators. ICU is overflowing, forcing critically ill patients into the PCU. Now, I did check onto this. I have absolutely no confirmation. I have one of the sources I would want to check before I said yes or no for this. An old nurse friend of mine from like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I should say, who went to the Navy rather, as a nurse in the Navy, but her home base is in Indianapolis. So I'm going to see If there are a lot of flu A cases coming in, I'm going to check with her on that one. But I'm going to call this one bullshit, but that's not going to stop them from pushing the propaganda out that, oh, well, the plague is coming and the anti-vax and this and that and the next thing. Pence weighing in on RFK Jr., which, I mean, we're getting a lot of this one here. RFK Jr.'s checkered past should disqualify him, Pence's group says. From Daniel Payne. Senators should reject RFK Jr.'s nomination to lead the government's health agencies because he's an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, a former heroin addict, supporter of marijuana and psychedelic drug legalization, backer of abortion rights. A conservative group is arguing. Advancing American Freedom, an advocacy group founded by Mike Pence, is throwing everything at the wall in a bid to convince Republican senators to stop Kennedy, a longtime Democrat whom Trump has chosen to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Any of these controversies should be disqualifying for the potential HHS leader. Advancing American Freedom president and chair of the board Tim Chapman and Mark Short wrote on Tuesday in a letter to 53 Republican senators who will decide whether Kennedy gets the job. Look, I am actually against Kennedy becoming an HHS secretary as well. I don't like him. He's a Kennedy. He has a lot of baggage, both from his family name, his political ties, the political favors that are given out to his family that he owes back on. And yes, the fact that he was a fucking dingbat before any of this. I like the fact that he pisses the progressives off, but not enough to put him into a cabinet position. I think he's entertaining that he pisses so many of these people off. But that wouldn't give me the reason to put him in a cabinet position. I wouldn't put Mike Judge into the FCC because it would piss off Tipper Gore. I like what Kennedy is doing. I don't want him anywhere near the government. Other things that I hate. Skip that one. This one. This is stupidity on multiple levels. A Michigan lawmaker has sterilized herself to avoid becoming pregnant while Trump is president, which is not necessarily true either. That's an extreme position. She did tubal ligation, which can be reversed. It's not often very successful, but it can be reversed. Lauren Pohutsky said just under 2 weeks ago, I underwent surgery to ensure that I would never, ever have to navigate a pregnancy in Trump's America. Meanwhile, she lives in Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer has already guaranteed that you can have your abortion up to moment of birth, no matter what, as long as she's in power. And she will be again, by the way. So this was a symbolic thing. Trump has already said states' rights. The GOP, he won't sign an abortion ban federally. So this person basically just did this, if she even did this, to do a show. And what really upsets me about this is the fact that I have a friend who has also actually done this, and it's for the same reason. She went back out and did this. Now, this person lives in Wisconsin, where there's been the, quote, abortion ban since the 40s. The Democrats are not going to do anything about, but are going to run on every single election from here until the end of time. So for a Wisconsin resident, that is a little bit more understandable at this point, but one of the things that just, it grinds my gears off of this is these people deliberately taking themselves out of the gene pool semi-permanently, while the people that they claim to be against in the government, that they're having a civil war with, are just sitting here outbreeding them 70-1. It's not the greatest strategy. Fox 2 Detroit, Michigan state lawmaker faces backlash over sterilization decision, which, I mean, and again, It's your choice. You should be able to do so. I think it's stupid, but I wouldn't stop you from doing it either. I thought it was stupid when my friend did it, but I wouldn't stop her from doing it. I want to know who's making the threats, though. The Associated Press reporting threats follow a Michigan lawmaker who said she had surgery to remove reproductive organs. A Michigan state lawmaker told a crowd protesting at Trump's early actions this week that she underwent elective surgery to remove... Oh, she had a hysterectomy on top of it, too. So, my friend just had a tubal ligation. She had a full hysterectomy. The 36-year-old Democrat said the surgery was a personal decision she had been considering for a few years and was finalized by Trump's election. No, she did this for show. Because she'd already been considering doing so. And just said, hey, I can make a political statement out of this and say, evil tyrant wants to force me to be in the kitchen pregnant, and I'll show him. I'm going to tell you this, anybody that's making a threat to her right now is a Democrat operative. And if you are a conservative and making a threat to somebody like this, stop being fucking stupid. This person with wild progressive ideas just took herself out of the gene pool. Celebrate. Alright, let's throw some other things that I hate up here. Ed Markey into the news. Ed Markey, let's hear what he has to say.
This is the time when we have to stand up and to fight, to not stand on the sidelines, to have people by the millions are going to have to stand up and protest. When we come back here the next time, there should be hundreds of thousands and millions of people descending on Washington, D.C. Is the time.
Doesn't that sound like an insurrection to you? No, I know that's different, and the D is circled on the different. A couple more. An op-ed from the Washington Post. Trump 2.0, the most damaging first 2 weeks in presidential history. But the highlighted part of this one. Trump's second term is all about curtailing government's power and reach. Yes, I am in favor of this. I don't think he's going to go far enough in this. No president in history has caused more damage to the nation more quickly as we enter week 3 of Trump's second term. The chaos and disruption of his first look quaint by comparison. The country survived Trump 1.0. Now it faces a real threat that the harm he inflicts during his second term will be irreparable. The U.S. standing in the world, its ability to keep the country safe, and the federal government's fundamental capacity to operate effectively. All these will take years to repair if they can even be achieved at all. Well, if they can't, I'm kind of okay with that too. They're coming out here trying to say that he's some sort of tyrant. And then tell us that the second term is all about curtailing the government's power and reach. What tyrant does that? I had some stupid fucker over on X actually try to say that Trump's first term, when he's trying to shrink the federal government, is that like people like Pinochet and Stalin also shrunk the government and concentrated all the power into the executive branch. I'm like, yeah, but they also tried to extend their effect into their people's lives. That's the opposite of shrinking the government. The people, the person that our government installed in Russia and have been holding up for the last 4 years has made his opinions on elections known very brightly. Zelensky claims that Ukrainian people oppose holding elections and prefer that he remains in power. Said every dictator in history This was just funny. EU regulators think it's too dangerous to simply break a bottle across the bow of a new ship. Instead, they insist on the use of this contraption. For those of you listening on the audio platform, it's a major catapult that's ramming the bottle against a peg in the ship's hull. And when they swung on it really hard, it fell back out. Is Europe just consuming this much soy that they can't break a glass bottle? And I understand, because I have them, that wine and champagne bottles are made of a little bit heavier glass than your standard beer bottle. So it's going to take a little bit harder swing to get it to go, but I feel like most average strength American men can just hit that bottle against steel and it'll break. And this contraption makes it even, and it's tied into the thing too on top of it, so. Alright, and the last one before we head out of here. So Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, has been confirmed today. I'm not a huge fan of Tulsi either. Like, I like Tulsi Gabbard as a person, but I understand and I remember where she's been on gun control, and I don't like the fact that she's going to be in a Republican administration because of it, especially in national intelligence. Because she's also had views that I did not care about regarding the Patriot Act. But Bernie Sanders voted no against her based on the fact that she's going into the Trump administration. Tulsi literally stepped down, and here's the video when she did, as vice chair of the DNC, a position now held by David Hogg, because of what the DNC did to Bernie Sanders and declaring that she supports him for president. This is one of your bigger fans of Bernie, and you're just stepping away from her because evil orange man bad. Let's listen.
As a vice chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next president and commander-in-chief of the United States. We need a commander-in-chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as vice chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders.
So she literally quit her job with the DNC because they screwed over Bernie, and Bernie came out and said, I don't want you to be national security advisor because my handlers at the DNC have said that I am not supposed to support this, even though I am an independent, I am a socialist. It's also part of the reason I don't want her as the director of national security, but she didn't quit her job to support me. She quit her job to support Bernie, who threw her in the dustbin of history. So, good job with that. Guys, I'm starting to feel it a little bit. I'm starting to feel it a lot, I'm not going to lie. So, I think it's going to be time to say good night. I think. I'm going to change a few things in here. Palm suggested that I put this back at a V and point it back at that wall, which I wanted to be my big centerpiece as well. So I don't know. I might do that on Thursday. I don't know. It's not a bad idea. I mean, the OCD part of me wants this to be in a corner because of the way that it's shaped. But I think that if I go that route too, it'll be, because this is primarily being used as a news desk in a studio, I think it would work better that way, because again, I want that wall over there to be my backdrop. So we'll see how that goes and what we have to do with that to make this all work and still be somewhat neat and organized in here. But for now, let's find us some outro music and head out of here for the night. Where is it? Where's my outro music? There it is. So, with that, we head out of here for the night. Thank you everybody who came by and hung out and chatted in the live chat. It's been a great night. We went over a lot of stuff. I am definitely appalled by the fact that I spent so much of the first half of this show talking about big balls in the Gulf of America. Don't you feel like your money is being well spent right now? I sure do. Anyway, I'm going to head out of here for the night. Thanks again. If you are on the Twitch side, stick around. We're going to go find somebody to raid and bring the audience over to. Thanks again for everybody who's watching on the replay and on the audio platform. We had a huge showing, by the way, of last week's audio platform. 16 downloads, which we normally get 3 to 5 on the audio platform, and most of my stuff comes on the YouTube replay. So if you like what you see, share this around on the audio, and yeah, come back and join if you're on the audio right now and you're a new listener on the video platform as well. Go check out the audio as well for my talk with Paul Thompson of Drosselmeyer, Curse of the Rat King fame. Go check him out. That was a great conversation I had with him. And check out on Friday, if you have not listened to this, and it's Friday, Valentine's Day already at this point. Go check out my conversation with Olive Swan that should be dropping about then. Take care. Have a wonderful night. We will see you here next time for more news and more headlines and more contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.